It is 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council members, city officials. Welcome to the April 13, 2026 regular city council meeting. We are meeting at 26 South Paint Street, Chiillicothe, Ohio, and I would ask the clerk to call the attendance roll.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Bennett.
Present.
Payne.
Here.
McCourt.
Here.
Barnes.
Here.
McKeever.
Here.
Dement.
Here.
Preston.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Creed.
Here.
And now I would ask Ms. Bennett to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes from the March 23, 2026 meeting have been distributed. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections?
Yes. President Shoemaker, I noticed that there was, I don't know how important it is, but it is incorrect. I did not have anything on the agenda last meeting. I just said we had a committee meeting, and I don't, there was nothing on the agenda for an engineering committee last time. So we might want to make that correction.
With that correction, is there a motion to accept the minutes with that correction? Motion by Mr. Dement, second by Mr. McCourt, and the clerk will call the roll.
Bennett.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
McCourt.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
McKeever.
Yes.
Dement.
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Minutes are approved. We'll now move to reports of committees. Development Committee, Mr. Dement.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Development Committee has nothing on tonight's agenda and nothing to report this evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Engineering Committee, Ms. Dunn.
President Shoemaker, we have item number 3 on the agenda tonight, and when the proper time comes, I'm going to ask that we waive the 3 reading rule because it does have to do with grant deadlines if there are any out there, and I wouldn't want to miss any of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance Technology Committee, Mr. Creed.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We had a committee meeting earlier this evening. We discussed 3 items, 26015, and this was appropriation of funds for the 2026 financial books. This was a lot of items that we did not do in the original budget, and we went back and got the detail on those, and the committee has passed that to go forward to for the full council. 26-018, and this is accepting and appropriating funds for ORDC and release of mortgage, and this is basically a pass-through. We'll accept the money, then we will pay it out as well. And item 26-017, and this is funds for the extension of builder's risk insurance. The wastewater treatment plant was supposed to be done, I think, in May, and now it's not going to be done until the end of January of next year. So we needed to extend that insurance policy, and the committee voted to approve that as well. On top of that, we have 2 items on the agenda. Item number 2 is reappropriating the money from the Appalachian Community Grant Program. These are monies that were unappropriated at the end of the last year, so we're just reappropriating those funds, and at the appropriate time, I'll ask to waive the 3 read rule on that. And then item number 4 is an ordinance consenting to the proposal submitted by Ohio Department of Transportation to resurface a high street from Main Street out north to the city limits. And this is work that will not be done until next year, so we don't have to worry about it this year with everything else we got going on. But next year they will come back in and redo that. So I'll let that go to a second read for that one. That concludes my report.
Thank you. I'm glad you clarified that won't be happening this year. Yes. And now we'll move on to the Human Resources Committee, Ms. Payne.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We had a committee meeting earlier this evening on assignment 26-007, and that was It's for an ordinance appropriating $10,200 to cover the costs associated with the city's participation in the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission's 2026 Local Government Internship Program. And this program is 100% reimbursed to the city. So we put the money up front, and then at the end of the summer, we're reimbursed for this. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Parks and Rec Committee, Mr. Barnes.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. I have nothing on the agenda and nothing new to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Safety Service Committee, Ms. Preston.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We had one item on that we met for tonight on the committee, in the committee meeting. I can't talk tonight. It was funding for one police officer and one firefighter to place those positions back in the current budget. They were removed when we had budget discussions in the late fall, and we wanted to have this placed back in there. So it was approved, and that'll be on the agenda the next time. And as for anything else on the agenda, I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Utilities Committee, Mr. McKeever.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Utilities has nothing on the agenda for tonight and nothing new to report. Thank you.
Thank you. City Services Committee, Mr. McQuirt.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. City Services has one item on the legislation tonight. An ordinance accepting and adopting a revised of City of Chiillicothe Transit System procurement policy for the Chiillicothe Transit System. That's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Community Affairs Committee, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have nothing on the agenda, nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to reports of officials. Mayor Feeney.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Just a few things to touch on tonight. First, I'm going to touch on everybody's favorite topic, which is construction and street congestion. Today, I think, marks 2 weeks since the start of the major work on Bridge Street, its impact on detours, et cetera, through the city. And I just want to talk for a couple minutes about how we are dealing with that. So, first and foremost, the city has worked very closely with ODOT over the past several years to plan for this project. The administration, city council, we've all met, sat down with ODOT. We've looked over these plans. These are the plans that we were, submitted originally. I think the tough thing happens, that first week, the pain you feel, the human nature about the routes that you're used to, and that sort of thing. And so as the dust settles from people taking different routes and adjusting, what we're able to do sort of in real time is do traffic counts, do observations of sort of human nature, where people turn, where people don't turn, and we will make adjustments along the way. It's somewhat necessary to do it that way because there are moving parts in this project. Everybody knows that the Octangie is also closed, but it will only be closed until August, whereas this project will extend further, and that changes how people travel. And so just some quick observations. We've already changed some traffic timing. It appears that the major pinch point in these various places is High Street and Water Street. High Street going southbound is during certain times of the day can delay a trip by somewhere around 10 minutes is the counts that we're getting. And we also know that Narrows Road is getting backed up at times as well, people going around Bridge Street that way. The exit on westbound 35 is open going southbound on Bridge Street, and it's just going to take some getting used to navigating that. I will say, if anybody's been out to Bridge Street lately, the traffic's great. So please make sure you're continuing to go out to Bridge Street, plan ahead, because it's going to take you about 5 or 10 minutes longer to get home, but it's never been easier to navigate out there in Bridge Street, in my opinion. So things that we're looking at but have not made decisions on would be a wide range of things, such as continuing to modify timing of intersection lights. That could be all the way down High Street, that could be Water Street, et cetera, et cetera. Restricting left turns is also something we're looking at, and just increasing signage and awareness. So we are well aware of the issues, but I will also say this: if there are specific issues that people experience in their day-to-day travels, that are not being addressed, we're open to comments and suggestions. We're doing this in conjunction with ODOT. Reopening eastbound, the highway entrance eastbound on 35 is not one of those options. And I'll clarify very briefly why that road is closed. So I'm talking about northbound on High Street, the on-ramp onto basically onto 35 going eastbound is closed. And the reason it's closed is because during times of high traffic, and this is one of the core reasons for this project, several years ago at Christmas time, a woman was killed in an accident because the exit traffic on Bridge Street, traffic exiting at the Bridge Street exit off of 35 was backed up so far, it was actually backed up on to 35. And a woman was killed because she essentially was rear-ended because that traffic had backed up onto the highway. That is a very dangerous situation. And the modeling that ODOT did shows that we ran the risk of that being a significant backup because people would get High Street 35 exit, and that would compound the issue. And so first and foremost, the decisions that we make as a city with ODOT, with the state, are about safety. And so we recognize the high levels of inconvenience. I think probably all of us have already experienced them, but safety is the first factor that we consider. And so that's why that particular change was made. But I will say this, like, we look at the models are almost always very accurate, but we have to be able to adjust for real life circumstances. And so that's what we will continue to do. Unfortunately, it's a long project, but we will stay on top of it. It's not something that's frozen in time. So in the interim, we'd ask for your patience, and I sincerely appreciate the stress that this has caused over the last couple of weeks. A couple other things I wanted to touch on, somewhat related to this, is we've been having an internal conversation around what appears to be the proliferation of e-bikes. So these look like bicycles, but they have motors and they can go pretty fast. And so we're starting to see those on sidewalks. We're starting to see them on the bike path. And so the police department is researching sort of what communities are doing to curb this practice, especially on sidewalks. It can be pretty dangerous, and there are communities that actually have speed limits on their bike paths, that sort of thing. But I just wanted council to know that because it's likely that soon you might get a legislation request to deal with some of this. In the meantime, the police are just sort of taking a heightened awareness to the issue. In places like downtown, it's happening more and more. A fast, basically motorized bicycle on the sidewalk is not a good thing, either for pedestrians or for especially young people riding them without helmets and that sort of thing. So just an issue that we're looking at. And then the other issue I want to bring up that I honestly don't have a solution for, it was brought to our attention last week. The law director's office has been working on this, is the questions around the ballot language on the paving levy. So the ballot language on the paving levy is not the language that City Council passed. And there's a major distinction between those two things. One of the major distinction is that the language on the ballot does not say 10 years. And the law director's office has worked, and she might report on this tonight, but has worked very hard to try and find out why that happened. I'm still not sure we have exact clarity why it happened. I would love to see something in writing from the Secretary of State, to be honest, to just frankly tell us why that happened. But I think it puts, at least I'll voice my own opinion, puts us in somewhat of a precarious position, because I know when I sent the committee assignment request, I suggested that council consider permanent versus 10-year. The City Council chose to do a 10-year limited levy, which is exactly the same thing we did 10 years ago. Which was fine 10 years ago, and so it's somewhat unclear to me what has changed, and it's also unclear to me if the language does not say 10 years, but that's the intent, obviously, of the City Council legislation. If the intent of the legislation goes forward, we have a opinion from the law director's office. I think my interpretation of it is saying that perhaps it was not permissible to put 10-year limit on, but again, why that's why that was okay 10 years ago is at least confusing to me. So I think I just want to be very straightforward and honest with the voters of what they're going to see on the ballot and what it actually means. And so I don't know, the next city council meeting is only a week before the vote. I think that city council has planned some public meetings this week this week and next, to talk about that ballot issue. I was not able to attend those meetings on the dates that they were scheduled, so I was talking to the auditor about hosting a separate session, but being able to talk with specificity and clarity on that topic and be honest to the voters, I think, is important. So I don't know how council wants to handle that. I don't actually know the process for removal. I know a candidate can take themselves off the ballot, but I think sample ballots are already, or not sample ballots, actual ballots. You can vote early already. So that puts us in a strange position, I think. But that's my take on it. Might take further discussion, or I'd be interested to hear what city council is thinking. And then finally, on a lighter note, this is kind of cool. So Artemis 2, we all know the excitement from last week around Artemis 2. We actually have 2 trees in Millennium Grove that came from seeds that have gone and went around the moon. And they're 2 sycamores in Millennium Grove. They have signs on them, but those were planted during the millennium. And our Millennium Grove is, it might be the only grove in the country, but it's definitely the only grove in Ohio that has all 100 trees that came out of that project. Most of them were scattered around states, so 20 here, 20 there. But we have one of the best preserved and active groves in the country. And 2 of those trees went around the moon, which is pretty cool. I will stop there.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to the auditor.
I do not have anything to report tonight, nor do I have anything on the agenda.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the law director.
Thank you. To keep it short, when Luke was talking about the ballot, he's correct. Everything he said, we did research it. The ballot wording is correct. Interestingly, the statute does not allow time for a limit to be placed on the ballot. This type of tax has to be imposed permanently or until council takes action to revoke it. As such, the bottom line is nothing needs to be done and the issue can remain on the ballot as it is. That's the takeaway from there. We are currently still working on the pro-laser speed radar devices. We're actually, some of our prosecutors are going to the oral fluid testing seminar tomorrow. So there's a lot going on with the prosecutorial issues, and we've been very busy with legislation. This street construction kept us really busy. So I'm glad we finally got that resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to audience participation. Any person wishing to address the council must first provide his or her name and address. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes, and I will give you a warning when there is 1 minute remaining.
John Thacker, 990 Columbus Street, apartment 307, Chiillicothe. First, I want to let the mayor know I voted for that, so I hope it's going to go through, but we'll see in what form. Also, I'd like to refer everybody who has not already seen the excellent article by Shelby Reeves in the Gazette about the practical consequences of a hotly debated topic from a year ago, Section 555, which shows that the city has arrested no one, which some of us said would be what would happen. So I guess I could say, we told you so, but we'll skip that for the moment. Again, excellent article. Going on from there, there are so many things going on at the city that feel like they're kind of frozen in time, because I know that one of the things that came as a consequence of 555 was a committee that was to study and I think did have a memorandum of intentions for the unhoused. We could perhaps have a follow-up that. Another thing is the council president has started a nonprofit funding committee to be reinstituted. And we hope that perhaps one of those people can tell us exactly what funding sources we would have for that, because the general fund in Chiillicothe probably has a little bit less than it did a year ago, so to work with. But that's something that's kind of in flux also. And let's see, I've got a long list of the Tiffin school property, which was transferred to a corporation, and I've not heard anything about it, and perhaps it's just because I'm not in that loop, but I'd be curious to find out about that. Perhaps I can talk another time with the mayor. He would be almost certainly aware of what's going on there. And close to home, there is construction going on, and I know about it because I can hear it pretty regularly over at Mary Lou Patton Park, which is the federal, is it federal funding or state? For Mary Lou Patton Park, for the drainage and other things. Well, at any rate, they are doing work over there. I can hear it regularly, so we know that that's progressing. I guess in some ways, I look at some of the things that people, you know, they say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Good intentions are not enough sometimes to get everything done. You have to go ahead and follow it through. There are problems in Chiillicothe as to people who, quite honestly, are having trouble making ends meet because everything's more expensive. We know that. I mean, you guys pay more. I pay more for everything. But particularly as to housing, and that's one of the issues that is always important to me, is to make sure that there's an opportunity for housing for anybody who wants a house. And the Tiffin property would be certainly one way to increase the housing stock in that neighborhood, which is, of course, your ward. So if we could hear more about that. I don't know if that, do I have any more time?
You have one more minute, but you're not obligated to use it.
Well, you know what? I'm the only one who's speaking. So, and other than that, I would say thank you for all seeing all your friendly faces tonight. And I missed last week's meeting. And you know what? I know what happened. Somebody tripped over the cord. I forget who it was. Who was it we were going to blame for tripping over the cord? But I wasn't here, but I'll take it. So at least the minutes as amended will give me a good idea of what happened. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with a 17-minute meeting. So congratulations on that. Thank you.
Thank you. That road you mentioned also apparently has a lot of roundabouts on it on the way to hell. So I'll skip. Hearing no more from audience participation, we'll move to old business. Is there any old business to come before council? I do think this would be an appropriate time to have at least a discussion about the language that's now on the ballot. I must say, I know there have been meetings about it. People have already voted, and it certainly isn't what some folks expected. And so that's not to blame anybody. It's just a fact that we've got folks that have gone out and talked about the ballot issue and encouraged people to vote for it. And one of the reasons they may have encouraged them was because this council voted to only have a 10-year limit on that. So I'd like to just hear some of your thoughts about it, if anybody has any thoughts on that particular issue about whether there's anything that we ought to look to try to clarify some of these issues.
Yeah, I just want to get something clarified. The law director said that as presented on the ballot, are they voting on a permanent measure right now? I mean, without council intervention in 10 years?
They are voting on a permanent at this point in time, I believe.
I would just say that when we have the meetings the next couple of weeks, we'll talk about that as well as the purpose for the levy, which is really the kind of the heart of it. Talking about why we need this, why we need to continue this, and we'll bring up the issue that's out there. So people that want to hear about it, we'll discuss it and get feedback from them, and then we can share that back and we can use that for our future discussions or decisions that we make on this issue.
The one concern that I would just raise so that everybody's aware is that, there are going to be certain people who are going to vote against this. And if it were to pass, they're likely going to try to figure out whether there's a way to challenge it later. And so the more we can clarify things ahead of time here, either with some guidance from the state or somewhere, I think that would be appropriate so that we're not in a situation where it appears that council was not being as transparent or as clear as we could have been. Obviously, this is something relative to the statute and no one's to blame personally, but it is a question of where, you always have a few people who, if this were to be successful, they might believe that they were misled with some of the things that were done relative to the council vote. So I think we need to just get some clarification between now and the election if we can. And I will take it upon myself to talk with the law director and the mayor to see if we can't get some more clarification relative to the questions that might arise. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to petitions and correspondence.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. I've not received anything.
Is there any new business to come before council? Hearing none, we'll move to the reading of ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. This evening we have 4 items on our agenda. Item number 1 is the second reading of an ordinance accepting and adopting the revised City of Chiillicothe Transit System procurement policy for the Chiillicothe Transit System.
The ordinance will move to the next agenda, the next ordinance.
Item number 2 is the first reading of an ordinance reappropriating Appalachian Community Grant Program funds, which were carried into the 2025 books and appropriated at year end to comply with GAAP and declaring an emergency.
President Shoemaker,
Mr. Creed,
I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3-read rule on that, please.
is there a second? Second by Ms. Payne. And the clerk will call the rule relative to the waiver of the 3-read rule.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
McQuirt,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The 3-read rule is waived. The clerk will now call the roll relative to the ordinance.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
McQuirt,
Yes.
Barnes,
yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Next resolution.
Item number 3 is the first reading of a resolution authorizing the appropriate city officials to apply for grant funds from the Ohio Public Works Commission for the year 2027 and enter into an agreement with the OPWC and to accept such grant funds if awarded and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I'd like to see us waive the 3-reading rule for this so that if any grants came up, we could apply for them as soon as possible.
Thank you. Second by Ms. Bennett. And the clerk will call the roll relative to the waiver of the 3-read rule.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
McQuirt,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
The 3-read rule is waived. The clerk will call the roll relative to the resolution.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
McQuirt,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. The next ordinance.
Item number 4 is the first reading of an ordinance consenting to the proposal submitted by the Ohio Department of Transportation to resurface a portion of State Route 104 within the corporation limits of the City of Chiillicothe establishing the city as the local public agency.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. Is there a motion?
President Shoemaker, I didn't mention the time and date of those two meetings that we're having. I wanted to do that before we close the meeting. The first one will be Thursday, April 16th at 6 p.m., and this will be at the Library Annex, Room D, 40 West 5th Street. And the second one will be April 23rd at 6 p.m. at the First Church of God at 780 East Water Street in the Fellowship Hall. Thank you.
If there's no other business to come before the council, I would accept a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Bennett, second by Mr. Barnes, and the clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
McCourt,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Dement,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
We are adjourned.